Judges Corner is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com and gatheringmagic.com. Support our show by visiting both websites. Now it's time for Judges Corner with David Green.
Hey everyone, David Green here from Judges Corner. Since I started doing Judges Corner, I've answered about 200 questions, give or take. So today I thought we'd do something different. I've hand-selected a couple of them that I thought were interesting, and we're going to answer those questions now in a video. So let's go ahead and get started. So George asked, if your opponent has a Reign of Gore in play, and you play Beacon of Immortality, targeting them, do they lose? Well, unfortunately, George, no, because Reign of Gore is a troll. It replaces the life gain from a source that you control that caused you to gain life. However, if you control a source gaining someone else life, Reign of Gore won't replace that. It only replaces the event when you control the source that's gaining you life, not when you control a source that's gaining someone else life or when someone else controls a source that's gaining you life. So if they had foolishly tried to double their own life total with their own beacon, they'd have lost. But unfortunately, because you played it, they're going to end up reaping the reward of tasting a little bit of immortality. Next, Stanley asked, say I use my Niv-Mizzet Draco Genius's ability and redirect damage to a Planeswalker. Do I still draw a card? Well, no, because Planeswalkers are not players. The damage is not actually being dealt to a player because it's being redirected via the Planeswalker damage redirection rule to one of their Planeswalker permanents, so the effect on the dragon will not trigger. But then, he asked, but what about things like Blightning? I know you can still make your opponent discard and damage a Planeswalker, so doesn't that mean that the Planeswalker is part of the player? Well, the thing about Blightning, or effects that have both damage and other effects, is that the damage is being redirected to something else, in this case the Planeswalker, as it resolves via the rules for the game that have a replacement effect for the particular damage, while the original targets for the spell, the player, remain unchanged. So the remainder of the spell will do as much as it can to the player, while the damage that's being redirected will be shifted over to their Planeswalker. This particular decision is made as the spell starts to resolve. The next question by Quentin is, I was wondering if my Dawnbringer Charioteers loses Flying, Lifelink, and Heroic from a Viper's Kiss. Well, activated abilities are those that have a cost, a colon, and then some effect. Lifelink and Flying are continuous abilities that are just always on. And Heroic is just a triggered ability that triggers when the condition, being targeted by a spell you control, is met. Our next viewer, Mike, asks, in a free-for-all multiplayer game, if you control both Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood, and gain 1 life off of an Extort trigger, this will cause the 2 enchantments to trigger in tandem forever. But, because neither trigger is optional, does this mean that the game will end in a draw, despite players reaching 0 life? The game will not draw, because players lose for having 0 or less life when state-based actions for that are checked. State-based actions are things that clean up messes within the game, and they check all the time just before anyone would receive priority, and even check again if anything is affected by them before giving priority to a player. The triggers off of those enchantments, however, only go on and come off the stack after state-based actions are checked, independently of the stack. And then those triggers will cycle again, one by one, in between another round of state-based actions, and so on and so forth. Our final question from Christian is, I have a question about Spawnshire of Ulamog. With its 20 mana ability, you may cast any number of Eldrazi cards from outside the game without paying their mana cost. What does outside the game mean? Well, Christian, according to the rules, outside the game is only cards in your sideboard. This is where you'll find the phrase Wishboard, where some older decks would use their sideboard as a toolbox for cards like Living Wish, Cunning Wish, or Glittering Wish. However, for kitchen table magic amongst you and your casual friends doing your casual thing, outside the game can mean anything not in the 8 zones of the game. Keep in mind that there once was a sideboard rule for Commander, but it has since been discontinued, primarily due to Wishboard abuse. So that's it for this episode. If you have any questions about this episode or any other episodes that we've done, or just random magic rules questions in general, you can always send us an email at judgescorner@gatheringmagic.com, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Until next time, make sure to shuffle thoroughly, play at a reasonable pace, and remember, it's judgescorner@gatheringmagic.com.
Hey guys, we're doing an Indiegogo campaign for Game Changer, a new nerd nonprofit that teaches kids how to learn through play. This YouTube channel was kind enough to share this with you. You can learn more by going to our page or spreading the word. Thank you for your support.